All right, good evening, everyone. I'm calling the Southborough School Committee meeting to order at 6:32 p.m. on Wednesday, January 14, 2026. We are streaming live this evening, and all committee members are present. So first order of business is we're going to host an interview for Megan Hanley for the school committee's Municipal Technology Committee appointment. So this is one of two positions that the school committee appoints to the Municipal Technology Committee, and it's been vacant for several months now. And Matt Probst actually reached out to me because he received the application from Megan, which was included in your packet. So I'll invite Megan. You can come sit right next to Kathleen. That's okay. Welcome, Megan. Thank you for coming. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself and what interests you? I know the information's in our packet, but if you wouldn't mind just taking a minute.
Sure. So my husband and I have been living in Southborough for a little over a decade. I grew up in Westborough, and we're raising an 8-year-old daughter who's in 3rd grade right now. And my background is in education, so I've been teaching in higher education for about 15 years. Currently, I teach remote for Penn State, so it does afford a nice luxury in terms of flexibility of schedule. We were pretty dismayed by what happened with the school. We really wanted a new school for our daughter as she, heads up into the 4th grade. When I used to teach full-time, I served on the technology subcommittee of the colleges that I taught at, which at the time were Newbury College, which was in Brookline, Mount Ida College, which was in Newton, Massachusetts, and then Bunker Hill Community College. So I have some experience serving on committees in that regard. And my schedule lightened up in terms of teaching, and I wanted to be able to figure out a way that I could somehow give back to the community, especially in light of what had happened with the school. And so that's why I reached out.
Great, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Megan to start us off?
You want to comment?
Go ahead, Roger.
Well, I cheated a little. I had a chance to talk to Megan yesterday. We chatted on the phone for a little bit. And, I know the chair of the technology committee was very complimentary, as I think you've seen in the email. And even though Megan's field of expertise in the kind of user experience design isn't something that I'm at all expert in, it's pretty clear that this is something that is going to play a much larger role in where we're going, technology-wise and schools-wise. So I'm excited to have someone on the committee that brings really sort of some new expertise in an area that we haven't had before. And I remember the interview I used to do a few years ago as well. Networks, IP addresses, and that was pretty much the extent of it. So this is going to be great. That's all I have.
Okay, great. Anybody else?
I'd like to thank you for contributing because it's needed. So thank you so much for being part of this.
And I know Matt was excited about your background, so it was definitely an area that he was excited to have join the committee. And I also think it's great that you have a child in the school system, so I think that's a value add as well.
I finished my my master's program. There's no PhD in graphic design, so it's an MFA, which is a 4-year program with a thesis. I finished it 2 years ago. I did it online, and my thesis was about how the design of social media platforms inherently affects the identity of kids. And so while I've taught in higher education, my scope of design work is actually around children, and it was very eye-opening for me. My daughter will definitely not be on social media until high school from that standpoint. But yeah, now I wrote a workbook on it, and writing another one now about algorithms and AI, because that's also sort of a touchy point.
Great, that's great. Well, again, thank you for volunteering to join this committee. If there's, did you have something else?
Go ahead. Well, just one question is just, do you have, obviously this may change as you get more involved, but do you think that the committee should have, do you have any, like, a couple things, 3 things that you think the committee should be most focused on moving forward?
With regard to like the schools,
Mm-hmm.
some type of uniformity in terms of the systems that are used. Seems from what I've been reading and just talking to people that there are some redundancies in terms of, we do have a lot of schools, but being able to streamline the platforms they're using inside the classrooms, maybe how the teachers can communicate with one another across different school environments would be nice. I know Chelsea mentioned the smart boards. I think that's fantastic. Obviously, we use those in the classroom in higher education. I don't see why it shouldn't trickle down to younger kids as well. It's a fantastic way of learning. I do really like Parent Square. I think it's great. There could probably be some ways to improve upon the information, the way that it's getting out to parents. There's so many different channels. It could maybe be brought together a little bit more. That's probably where I would start.
Okay, if everybody's okay with this, I'd like to move C6 up while Megan's here. And we can take a motion to vote Megan to be one of our MTC reps. That's okay? Mm-hmm. All right, so I'll move that the school committee appoint Megan Hanley to the MTC, Municipal Technology Committee as one of the school committee's representatives.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? 5-0. Thanks, Megan.
Congratulations.
Good luck. Keep us posted. All right. Thank you. Next is public comment. So if anybody has any comments from the public, feel free to raise your hand. All right. If Kiari and Todd want to rejoin us, go ahead. And when you're ready, I don't know who's going first, but we'll go to principal's report. All right, Clayton.
Oh, yeah. So we're excited at the Finn School to bring in 2026. The first photo on the left-hand side is really not the most flattering photo, but it does represent something that we were excited about in the month of December, the spirit of giving in our stuffed animal drive. So in the month of December, Finn students were in the spirit of giving and gratitude by collecting and donating new stuffed animals to support families in the community through the Fresh Start Furniture Bank, which is in Hudson. It's a volunteer charity which helps families who are starting out after being in a shelter environment on their own. So thanks to the generosity of the Finn students and their families, we're hopeful that these stuffed animals will bring comfort to children whose families are just beginning to start out. We introduced the donation drive with words to our students about how simple a stuffed animal can be more than a toy. It can become a familiar friend, especially during a time of challenge or a family transition or any kind of disheartening situation within the family structure. And this is something that really resonated with our students. They all could directly relate to having a stuffed animal, relying on that stuffed animal. So we were very proud of our students for showing up, donating, the compassion, the empathy, in their generosity. The second photo in the middle highlights the start of our school year, and Finn students were setting their sights on growth, both personal and school. So across all of our classrooms, students were thinking about their own personal goals and school-wide goals for 2026, how they learn, how they treat others, and how they continue to grow as responsible members of the Finn school community. It's a powerful reminder of even our youngest learners being capable of setting big goals and reflecting on their own progress. And finally, the last photo on the right is a snapshot of a research paper from a grade 1 student after exploring Module 2, Curious Creatures and Wisdom. the seahorse, the shyest fish in the sea. So grade 1 students learned about what makes seahorses unique, from their special body features, underwater habitats, to surprising facts that male seahorses carry and give birth to babies. And I do have to say that Mr. McCabe was out for a couple of days, and there was some speculation that we squashed that quickly. These grade 1 students are learning about how to take expert notes, how to use index, and gather real-world information. They're also strengthening their comprehension skills, they're collaborating, and they're learning facts that nonfiction facts can be just as exciting as fiction facts when you're reading stories. So if children come home and they're talking about dads having babies in the animal world, you'll know that the learning is making an impact. Great. And we're very excited for the 2026 school year and what it holds for the school.
So 3 pictures from Woodward School. The first is an event that we had before we all left for the break for the holiday. That's storyteller Len Cabral. Len has visited Woodward School for years now. He's a storyteller with Cape Verdean roots. He tells stories from West Africa and the Caribbean, just really global folk tales. This is connected to our 2nd grade folk tale and poetry storytelling unit. So Len was a fantastic guest. We want to thank our SOS for sponsoring his visit again. He does a wonderful job of incorporating ideas from students into his stories. He is very interactive with his body movements and just the way he tells stories. He's welcoming and inviting to students, and it's really a great experience. Hopefully your second graders spoke about Mr. Cabral, and we're excited to have him back again next year. In the middle, that's an author visit that we had last week. K-8, she's a Southborough resident and author. She's very open and honest with students. She talks about she talks about herself as a neurodiverse writer, and is very open about dyslexia and ADHD, which is empowering for students because so many of our students come to school with different learning profiles, and she's a model for what can be accomplished with hard work and dedication. She read her new story, which is Princess's Battle Royale. In the story, princesses have a wrestling match, and kids are shouting out answers, and they're involved in character development throughout the process and at the end of the brainstorming session. She has a lot of energy and just a great experience with kids. That was for our 2nd and 3rd grade students with 2 different presentations. And then finally, on the right-hand side, that is a didactic wall demonstrating grade 3 research. The research took place with Ms. Matthew in library media, but it's all about the sea, which connects to our grade 3 module 1 unit of exploring the sea. Students research different sea creatures and animals. They created note cards, they created models and pictures of their sea creatures, and then this is all on display in the 3rd grade hallway. Really just a nice collaboration of efforts from all students.
And for Mary, in the first photo, these are 2 students who participated in grade 5's educational assembly presented by the NWRA, Southborough Resources Authority. And this program focused on water safety and treatment, directly connected to our science curriculum and helping the students to understand the importance of clean drinking water. In addition to the discussion, students have the opportunity to take part of the pH activity. They work in pairs or small groups to test pH levels of drinking water, which is an important step in understanding how water is monitored for safety. This is a no-cost program to our schools that allow us directly to the science standards for grade 5. We just heard today that grade 4 was accepted into the program, so they will be participating in engineering and design next month, and we'll be sure to put out and a big thank you to John Turner for organizing this for grade 5. The second photo is cross-country in the course of Mary. So Mary's cross-country unit wrapped up in December. And the mission of this unit is to cultivate perseverance and self-belief in every student by fostering a supportive environment that empowers our students to set and achieve individual goals, thereby encouraging personal growth and resilience. The area cross-country unit aligns with the Massachusetts Comprehensive Health and PE standards, and it focuses on standard practice 2, self-management, and goal setting. So both 4th and 5th grade students participate in this unit, which consists of 5 different lessons, which include creating 100 goals, running the 8 course, which is a half mile, revisiting those goals, then running the 8 course individually, then teams for revisiting goals. So it's constantly going back and looking at goals and recognizing or determining whether they need to change them or what they need to persevere to reach those goals. They also run the B course, which is a 3/4 mile, focusing on pacing and perseverance. And then finally, they run what's called a slashy. So that's a choice of A or B course, or B or C course. And again, that's focused on pacing and perseverance. The C course is the 1 mile, and that's the culminating event for an area 5th grade tradition called the C course, where 5th grade qualifiers run the C course in the cross-country meet. Runners compete against themselves and others to achieve their best personal time, while the rest of the school cheers them on. So thank you to Mrs. Match for leading this event. And then third picture is part of our 4th grade social studies curriculum, where students explore early North American history through various interconnected areas of focus. In Mrs. Gardula's class, students study the indigenous peoples of North America with a particular emphasis on the Inuit. Through this unit, students learn how the Inuit would utilize the natural resources available to them to survive and thrive in a very challenging environment, as well as important role trade played in their way of life. And then in Mr. Finner and Mrs. Teff's class, students focus their social studies on the European explorers, studying the early explorers and their journey. And through this unit, students examine the motivation for the exploration and the challenges they faced. So to deepen their understanding, students in all 3 classes participated in experiential learning called, in Mrs. Gardula's class, the Inuit Craft Fair, and in Mr. Finner and Mrs. Teff's, they had the Explorer Exchange. So using part of their homework time, students designed and created a craft or a gadget using materials at home, reinforcing the concept of using available resources. And then during the event, they visit each other's classrooms and desks and sold their homemade items to classmates using play money, which included Canadian coins and shillings. And items included jewelry and bookmarks and magnets, painted rocks, many of which reflected the Inuit and explorer theme. So through this experience, students practiced product design, advertising, buying and selling while applying math skills and social studies skills. And together, these learning experiences provided their students with a well-rounded understanding of early North American history through hands-on, paper-based, and interdisciplinary instruction.
So, just came across a fun story. We had a student submit and win the Mass Department of Transportation Snowplow Contest. So Cleopatra was the winner, and we were just informed that it will be arriving here on the 29th. So if you want to see it, you're more than welcome. But I want to give Mrs. Leone and Visic credit for it. We just put it out there. It was a fun and creative little classroom culture task, and we were shocked to be recognized. So very exciting. That's the principal of Tri Middle School. So Cleopatra. Yes, that is it. Cleopatra. So I want to follow up from an update that I had at the beginning of the year. I'm really immensely proud of our science department. They were tasked with piloting not 1 but 2 curriculum, amplified and open sci ed. So I do want to recognize Jen Strong, Gail Rochelo, and Lisa Klein. This is a Herculean task to kind of depart from their curriculum and to learn and implement 2 new curriculum. It was really impressive. They did it with a great deal of dedication, focus, and fidelity. The reflection that they've had, the collaboration that they've had within the department, and of course with Milliken Middle School has really been really impressive. I want to thank Stephanie and Kathy Carmani who helped lead this. So we're in the kind of the analysis of the data, and part of it was getting student response and student survey about the experiences, and they just started combing through that data as well. So it was a great professional endeavor. I think they've learned quite a bit, and I'm excited about that coming around the corner with this, with a decision, shortly. And then lastly, before the break, I want to recognize our music program. We had 2 fabulous concerts. Our chorus concert, the joint chorus concert with Neary. I don't know if Neary can have any more chorus students. So, I mean, we don't have enough risers. It was a standing, a packed house, standing room only. It was a great collaboration between the 2 schools. I think that, how many years have we been doing this, Kathleen, now?
Well, at least 12.
Yeah, and so it's a great segue and a feeder system for the 2 music programs. So that was a wonderful concert, and then the following week, Mr. Clark had all the ensembles as well with another packed house. So I think really proud, always proud of the music program, always proud of the student performances, and I think one of the biggest pieces we really emphasize is not just about the performance, but it's the hard work, the dedication, and the rehearsal time that goes in ahead of time. And I think both Mrs. Alzapidi and Mr. Clark just build wonderful cultures in the music program, and it's because of that culture we have so much success. So I want to make sure I recognize their efforts.
Does anybody have any comments or questions?
Great job.
A general question? I mean, since our last meeting, and not everyone, not all the principals were there, there's a couple things that happened, right? I mean, one is we had, at least nationwide, an incidence of flu. I mean, a lot of people were sick that, plus the kids, had a break, right? They were gone for holiday break. Anything different coming back from the break this year than in past years, or just same old, same old?
In terms of, I wouldn't say there was a lot of regression. I think it was harder for kids to get into a groove. I think the break represented a lot of different kinds of activities that put them at a point where they came back a little fatigued. So, and we didn't see a lot of families extending the break, which we've seen over the years, where they might add a couple days on at the start or before school gets out. But our students were in it, they were tired, but they were back in a groove pretty fast.
Similar for the older kids?
I had the good fortune on just seeing the kids come off the bus Monday morning, and one of the things that was certainly noticeable is how excited they were to see their friends. Because you got to remember, vacation, sometimes, some kids are not connected, like they won't see these kids for, their peers for 10 days. So that excitement was immediate, and I think that really kind of carried through. One of the messages I put out through Parent Square is that, I have a middle schooler and a high schooler, like they stayed up late, they got up late. So I think getting back into that routine was important. So, and I think they adjusted really well. And the nice long weekend coming up is a nice respite. So yeah, kids, I think the routine and the structure is really good for kids, and I think they adapted very well.
I think that additional day, having that full week, was really beneficial. I didn't see them coming back. I mean, ours were a little bit tired. I think they were ready to go. That was a nice addition to this year's break.
I would agree with previous points. I think that when we return from break, it's always a time to reestablish routines, within school and with, outside of school, as Gary mentioned. We talked about expectations, what, expected behavior looks like and sounds like in different areas of our building. So it's a natural time to revisit these things. It didn't seem harder this year than other years. But I do add a similar reminder to parents and families that routines are healthy for everyone, including your second and third graders, and they're very helpful. That we have consistent morning and bedtime routines. It just sets students up for success. But I didn't see a difference this year, but certainly appreciated the longer break.
It was a long break. I'm just saying. It was blocked from the other end.
I was
For
more
whatever
interested in the
reason.
kids' perspective than the parents' perspective.
It depends on which kid you ask, I think.
Oh, okay.
My Deary child
Okay.
couldn't wait to go back.
As a principal and father, the Sunday Scary started on the Thursday before we came back.
Yeah.
But that might just be a personal thing.
All right. Well, thank you for the updates.
Thank you.
MCAS presentation.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity to share a little bit about our MCAS data, and some of this will feel very familiar for those who've been through it before, but I think it's important to just frame it, so I will do that, and I'm happy to answer questions as well. So in terms of just the context, the MCAS is part of our accountability reporting. It's part of the accountability system in the country and in the state. It's a state test, but it is part of the federal mandates around having an accountability system. It's important for us because it does provide clear, actionable information, not only for us as a school district, but for families, for the community, and for the state in terms of looking at how learning is happening across the state. It helps us and it helps the state with directing resources and assistance. But as I always say, it is one of many sources of data. And so while we take it seriously and we learn a lot from it, we also are always trying to triangulate and look at it in the context of all of the different data sources. I also want to thank the principals for all of the work that they do and for being here tonight. It is, although we don't take the MCAS until third grade, it is really the combined efforts of all, and my thanks to the teachers as well. Like, this is the combined efforts of everyone who is supporting the development and the learning of students. Just to anchor us in terms of, as I said, this is, it's an important data point. It is also still situated within our larger vision, and MCAS does not measure every aspect of our vision, but it does help us in some areas more than others. And we still are really use our vision, our mission, our strategic objectives as our compass. And so as we look at MCAS, we're always thinking about that as well. In terms of some basic updates, one thing to be aware of is in the 2025 MCAS, this was the first year that we received score reports on the 8th grade civics test. They had taken it the year before, but it was, they didn't use the word pilot, it was a testing year, I can't think of the word that they used, but no scores were given to districts. This was the first year getting scores. And this year, again, our participation rates were high. I don't have our civics rate, but it was also really high. So in that respect, we have students and families engaging with this experience. When we think about who are our students, as we, so who are we talking about as we're looking at this learning? Our enrollment is fairly steady overall, but we do see that there are changing demographics within that. And it is exciting to see the growing diversity when we look at the different populations of students in the district. And that is, provides a rich and positive environment in our schools. In terms of the scoring of MCAS, I'll just highlight a few things. People at this point, I think, are pretty familiar because we've had this same scoring system now for a number of years. But there are 4 levels. We often sort of talk about them in chunks of 2 levels, so not meeting and partially meeting, which is, if you look at the bottom scale, which is scores that are below a scaled score of 500. And when you have a scaled score of 500 and above, that is meeting expectations or exceeding expectations, depending on how far above. And this is all relative to standards and criteria. It is not relative to each other, it is relative to the standards, which is it. So it's a criterion reference test. Okay.
So as we go through the results, I'm going to take us through the different disciplines. It's a lot of data, and we will look at it by subject. We will look at the achievement, so what performance levels were students at, and also growth, using the growth measure that the state looks at. And I think it's important to just frame overall in the beginning that as a town and as a school system, Southborough continues to outperform the state significantly in all areas. And we dig into that and say, where are we seeing positive growth and improvement, and where are areas we want to look more closely. So within English language arts, we'll look first at achievement, and I'll show you the information two ways, first in this graph and then in a table. So this is showing you, right now you just see grade 3 on the screen, but it's showing you the 2023 results, the 2024 results, and the 2025 results. So this year's 2025 results, 83% of our students were in the green or blue, so meeting or exceeding expectations. So really, just really high level of achievement. And you can see that it's pretty steady across the years. So we're always kind of looking at, how are we doing compared to past years at that grade level? And we do that as we kind of go across the grade levels. And so this is 4th grade, 5th grade, and then we continue on up through the middle school. And so this shows you 3 years of results. And so it is helpful to look and say, within a grade level, how do our results this year compare to last year? And in general, in ELA, our 2025 results were equivalent or better than our 2024 results in terms of the percent of students who are meeting or exceeding expectations. We also, though, are really aware of the fact that when you look that way across a grade level, within a grade level, that you're looking at different students. So sometimes the variation can be about the cohort of students. So we also, at times, will say, well, let's look at the cohort of students, which is not completely equivalent from one year to the next. But we could say the 4th graders in 2023 are generally the same cohort of students as the 5th graders in 2024, which is the same cohort as the 6th graders in 2025. And then we look at, so what do we see as the story over time? So these are sort of two different ways that we slice the data. One of the other things you might notice as you look at the ELA data is that, as students are with us over time, our percent of students who are meeting or exceeding is fairly consistent, but the percent of students who are exceeding is higher as they, assuming that they stay with us in our middle school years, a larger percent of those students are in the exceeding category. So that is something to celebrate.
Question for you, then, Raf, if I may.
Sure.
Through the chair.
Yes.
So, if I look at the 6th grade, and you can see that 23 and 25 are pretty similar, and 24, really there's a, I guess, I say success, almost success in this. Can you read anything into that at all? I mean, or this is just a...
It's a great question, and this is one of the things to notice there is that 24 class in grade 6 was the 23 class in grade 5.
Right.
And the 23 class in grade 5
Okay.
did, quote, better than the 24 class. So
Okay.
And the 24 class is the 7th grade.
is the 7th grade 25 class, which again is better than the... So,
I know there's, the sample size is huge, you talk with numbers.
yeah, and we're aggregating, all of the kids together. So, but it looks like in that case, that is a cohort of kids who are sort of year upon year, maybe doing better than the cohorts that proceed or succeed.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's not always the case, but I think in that case it is. So this is not the exact same, but similar information. This is showing you the percent of students who are meeting or exceeding. So that's the blue and green for each grade for the 3 years. So sometimes it's nice to see it in this format. Some people's brains work more this way. And again, you can look across the grade level. In general, our results mirrored the state trends in that we showed higher or equal achievement in most grades compared to 2024, with the exception of 6th grade. But again, if we look at a cohort, that 6th grade is not so different than they were the preceding year in 5th grade. Although, you know, there's a bit of a decline from 4th and 3rd grade. So these are all questions we ask ourselves, is sort of what do we think is going on here each time? And there are often many different things going on. So again, we look by cohort, we also look across the grade levels. Another statistic that you'll often see referenced is the grade 3 through 8 achievement. And this is even more aggregated. It's even zooming out more because it's combining what were our ELA results for grades 3 through 8 in one measure. And you can see, again, significantly higher than the state. That it is also, we have increased as compared to the previous year. And in looking at comparable districts, it's a similar pattern to ours, showing slight increases.
Slight increases.
Compared to the previous year. Yeah. So the other measure that I said we would look at is growth percentiles. Massachusetts uses what they call a student growth percentile, an SGP. And this is a measure of student progress. And the way it works is that it compares students to peers who had a similar performance on MCAS in the past. So if you think about a group of kids who scored similarly, let's say in 4th grade, then they look at that group and they look at just sort of slicing how did that cohort of kids do, and the median is 50 percentile, and then who falls above and who falls below. And so they sort of spread them out over the percentile, and it's a way of showing, compared to like peers, did you grow average, faster than average, grow more than average, or less than average. Where possible, they use 2 years worth of data. So if it was for a 5th grader, they would use 4th grade and 3rd grade, and that is to try to level out some of the, it can be kind of because you're constantly being compared to cohorts, as the cohorts change, it gives us a steadier statistic. So, and then what we look at here is average growth percentiles. So every student is assigned a growth percentile for each discipline, each assessment they take. And then we can say the averages for a class, the averages for a grade, the averages, you know, the general will be aggregated. This is actually a graph that shows achievement versus growth. So on the y-axis is the percentage of kids who are meeting or exceeding. So how high we are. The bubble is us, the blue bubble. It's blue because our percent of low-income students is from 0 to 10, and 10%. The star is the state. How high we are on the graph is achievement. So we have 70% of our students meeting or exceeding expectations in the aggregate for grades 3 through 8. Where we are left to right on the x-axis is our average growth percentile. The state's is, here it's 49.9, but by definition, the state is the median because they're taking all of the kids in the state. And we are right in the middle this year. So that our aggregate is average growth. But then we also look at much finer grain. So this is looking at English language arts by grade level. You know, again, looking at 22, 23, 24, and 25. And what we see here is that in most cases, our growth is steady, but there's a little bit of ups and downs. You know, some are higher and some are lower. It's, I think what's most notable, because it doesn't always work all that well to compare growth percentiles year to year, But what's most notable is that all grade levels are sort of above average in terms of the growth. So we're above the 50th percentile. In terms of then another way we look at the data is to start disaggregating the data and looking at groups of students. And there are certain groups that the state helps to pull out for us. We often slice things in other ways ourselves. And I think what's important as we look at this is if we look at the far right, you have our average scale score. And as you recall, 500 and above is meeting or exceeding. And if you look at the very bottom of that column, 511 is our average scale score for all students. And so what's notable here is that we know that our students with disabilities, our low-income students, and our students who are English learners are below the average of all students, and that we have a gap that we are working on closing at all times. A couple of things that I think are worth noting. Our growth scores are quite similar across our subgroups. Obviously, to close a gap, we're going to need some groups to grow faster than their peers. But it is not uncommon to see low achievement, low growth. So it is good news that even in those subgroups where we're seeing lower achievement, we are still seeing growth that is sort of close to the median. The other bright spot that I would point out is our former English learners. The average scale score for our former English learners is 508, which is almost the same as all students. The MCAS is not a great test for English learners, for kids who are still in those lower levels, in the sense that it's almost testing their English more than their math or their science or anything else. But our former English learners who have moved to the higher levels, the fact that they are so close and that we are closing the gap there, I think is really something to celebrate us in. Okay, in mathematics, I will take us through the same set of ways of looking at the data. So we have our third graders, again, 3 years worth of data, and we can see, really, again, very similar to the ELA results, although larger percentage of students in the exceeding than in ELA, and really, something that I think Woodward is really proud of, and should be. This is really strong performance. And as we move up through the grades, we again can sort of look at the patterns within grades, and then also look at cohorts. And I would say that overall with math, we're seeing more variability by grade level. We're not seeing as consistent of a story. And we again do the same exercise of looking sort of at grade level and asking questions about, where is this about the cohort of students? Where might this be, about something that is happening at that grade level? And if we look at it where we have sort of the numbers that can again help us to look by grade level, what we see is that the results are very mixed. Some grade levels are showing increases from 2024 and some are showing decreases. And that in the state, the results were relatively flat with a few grades going lower. So we have a little bit more volatility, I would say, than the state. This is something that we've been looking at closely. I've been working together with Mr. Bushek and Mr. Kittleson and our math curriculum leaders. We've been sort of slicing the data in different ways, and also so disaggregating it, looking at it, also comparing to other towns, looking at it together with our colleagues from the elementary and high school and from Pelican. And one of the other things that we're working on right now is working on having some common assessments beyond MCAS that can help us to look at the student achievement, to have some more data points that we can reference in comparison to this. This is just one example I would show, because again, we're looking across grade levels, but also it is really important to also consider these questions we're asking, because this is an example where we might say, In 5th grade, you had 73% meeting or exceeding in 2024 and 81% the next year. But if you look at it as a cohort of students, those students were actually quite consistent with what they did in 4th grade. So it's, again, one of those things where it's potentially more about the cohort of students than it is about the grade level. So they're complex questions that we're digging into because there are many sort of factors. In the aggregate, grades 3 through 8, and looking at comparable districts, again, we, we're relatively flat in the, let's see, now I'm like reading my own grading page. Right, so other districts look similar to us in the aggregate, but what I've found is I've looked more deeply at other districts, that there's, again, like really needing to look at it by grade level and more fine-grained, because I think it's just, you just can't understand as much when you're looking at it through grade in aggregate. This is the same graph that you saw earlier, and so again, the quadrants, we're aiming for high growth, high achievement. We are still really squarely in the high achievement when we think of the aggregate 3 through 8, and we're sort of in that middle zone, but a little bit below average in terms of our growth, a little below the median in the 45th percentile for our average SGP 3 through 8. When we look at the SGP by grade levels, again, I think that we see a lot of variability for some of the across grade levels. In some cases, they're pretty steady from year to year, and in other cases we're seeing changes, and we're really digging into it and trying to understand what's happening and trying to determine what are the concrete next moves that we want to take to support higher levels of growth and to continue to have high achievement. In terms of looking at our disaggregated populations of students, pretty similar to ELA in the sense that if you look at that average scaled score at the bottom, all students, it's 514. And again, our students with disabilities, our low-income students, and our English language learners are below that average. However, again, our FELs, our former English language learners, in this case are actually just a tiny bit above that average. So that is, again, a bright spot. And again, our growth scores are quite similar across all of these subgroups. So, very similar story to what I shared with ELA. In science, technology, and engineering, this is 4 years worth of results. There are not growth scores in STE in science, technology, and engineering because grade 5 to grade 8 is too far apart for them to find it to be statistically relevant. So we just look at achievement and again have really had very strong results in science, particularly in 5th grade. This past year, 81% of our students were meeting or exceeding, which is definitely a very strong representation of their knowledge of the standards. And in 8th grade, 66% of our students were meeting or exceeding. And you can see the same information in a table. Compared to 2024, in statewide results, they were relatively stable, plus 1%, minus 2%. Our results actually in 5th grade improved more than the state, 9% improvement in 5th grade, and this is comparing different cohorts of kids, but in the same grade level. And we went down a little bit in 8th grade, but really still staying in the same ballpark. Seeing mostly the same story in terms of our special populations for science, technology, and engineering, with the exception that our low-income students in science are closer to all students than they were in math and ELA, which is interesting. because we're talking about the same students. And again, our former English learners are, really close to that average scale score for all students. There is no score for English learners because it's just when the numbers are too low. They don't actually give information about a subgroup. In terms of civics, as I said, this was our first year of receiving scores in civics, and to be honest, we're still unpacking them. So I can give you kind of the very big picture, but we just actually had a meeting yesterday that Mr. Hership was part of with our teacher leaders, our curriculum leaders across the district, and we're feeling, sort of like this is not surprising results. It's fairly consistent with how kids do in other disciplines, and we're still kind of learning this assessment, and we do have specific information about released items and how kids did on those items, and so people are really looking forward to digging in and just learning more about it. So we had 16% of our kids exceeding, 48% meeting, 33% in the partially meeting, and just 2% in not meeting, which, we're talking about just probably 2 kids. So that was, a great start in terms of the civics. It is, I will say, for 8th grade, a lot of testing. They are now taking 4 different tests in 8th grade, and so that is one thing that we are aware of, is just some potential kind of test exhaustion. I can't remember the order of the assessments this past year, but
math, science, civics.
I thought civics was last. So there's a learning curve, I think, about the assessment itself. It's on the computer like everything else, but they're referencing multiple resources often for many of the problems. So there might be like 3 different sources and then questions that reference them, and they have to toggle between tabs. And so we're still kind of getting to know it and figuring out how to best support the students in this assessment. I've talked a lot about how we use the results, but we really do use it all the way from kind of the aggregate level for us to have conversations about everything from resources, schedules, staffing, really how are we supporting our students, to the class level, to the individual level, looking at subgroups of students, what's happening with our students on IEPs, all of those different questions. Where do students need acceleration? One of the comments when looking at the civics, I think actually from the worker side, it said, there are a few students who did really quite amazingly well, but it actually surprised us, and we need to ask some questions about how do we accelerate. So we have those kinds of conversations as well. And again, we're triangulating our results. We're looking carefully, even item by item. This is an example of what teachers might look at, where they can look, this would be a single assessment, like let's say this is ELA, grade 6, and they can look and see, compared to the state, they could look at their own class, or they could look at the whole grade level, and they can say, how did our kids do relative to the state? And then they might zoom in on certain items where they say, we were this much above the state on everything else, but on this one, on item number 7, for some reason we were at the same level as the state. Let's take a look at that. And we sort of track those things over time. So those are the sorts of conversations we're having. We also sometimes look at places where we far exceed the state and say, what are we doing right there? And let's understand that. So that is a lot of information. Happy to answer questions, and the principals will have insights as well.
Does anybody have any questions to start? That last graph, where you see the item analysis compared to state, is each item representative of a topic, a section, a question?
It's a great question, and I didn't explain this graphic super well, but yes, when we look at an item, we can see, and it is laid out for us, what standard it was addressing. Not all items are released. There are some items that they sort of keep because they're going to use them again, potentially. But the ones that are released, we can see the actual item, all the answer choices, and what standard it was addressing. And like then they're categorized by topics and different subcategories within the standards. So we can sort of slice that in all different ways too.
I think you might have to go to a training class to figure out how to do student growth percentile. You know, I mean, I carefully studied the definition, but
Did you have a question?
no.
Oh.
It's really,
Okay,
I mean,
sorry.
it's, think of it this way.
Waiting for it.
It's saying like if Chelsea, Roger,
Good
Greg,
luck,
and
good luck typing
I
this
know.
point.
If we all had similar histories in terms of the scores we had in the last 2 years.
Well,
It's
yeah,
saying
it
how
says
much-
other students with similar scores is
Yeah.
maybe the key.
Yeah, and I can share with you some resources to read more about the
Okay.
statistical, what they are doing statistically.
I try not to ask questions about things I know nothing about. Because it doesn't-
I
I don't
will-
do well.
I will feed you some
Right,
more
proceed.
you can read and it'll, might make your eyes roll back in your head. There are some
Further back.
statisticians, there's, yeah, further back.
So I understand, and this was a surprise to me, that when our kids do well at the end of their careers, that they're offered scholarships for how well they did on the MCAS. And I know you have to go to school in Massachusetts, but it's still quite a nice thing. Do we have any statistics as how many kids in the district are offered that scholarship?
That is a good question.
We
That's
do.
based on the 10th grade MCAS.
Not a typical.
Yeah.
But I mean, I was shocked to
can
know
definitely-
that that's available. I mean, I think it's a nice reward for kids
It
to know
is.
that there's something there. I mean, I didn't even know it existed. And then, unfortunately, you have to stay in the state to get it, but it's still a very nice reward at the end of doing MCAS for all these years.
It
I
is.
wonder how many kids of our kids are offered that. That would be a nice thing to know.
Yep, we could pull that up.
I have a couple of questions.
Absolutely.
So we're in year 3 of Wit and Wisdom.
We are.
And obviously, Eureka Math is really in the first year, right?
Yeah, except for there were some
Pilot.
5th grade, there were 3 classes in 5th grade and there were 3rd grade,
in
2
first
classes
grade.
in 3rd grade
Yeah.
last year.
So how now, being in year 3, do we measure or start to measure Wit and Wisdom? Because we're phasing out whatever we were doing prior, which I wasn't here, so I'm not sure what it was called. But how are we measuring that curriculum to how our students are performing?
So so there's Wit and Wisdom, there's also foundational skills components to our literacy work, and in the 4th and 5th grade, there's also our spelling and morphology programs. So there are multiple curricula that are sort of contributing to an MCAS score.
Yeah.
And then there's, as you can imagine, like lots of other factors. But we do look at the results and sort of, in the MCAS, we also look at our, other assessments that are closer to our day-to-day to say what are we seeing, in terms of students' performance and learning. We use our screening tools, such as Stibbles and some of the other screeners. And we really look at all of those things over time. I think in general, when we look across both districts, sometimes when you adopt new curriculum, you see a dip in the scores. And we've seen a little bit of that in some grade levels with Wit and Wisdom, but mostly it's been pretty steady. But now is sort of, as we get into years sort of 3, 4, where people are sort of getting more in the routine and getting through more of the curriculum, that's what we're going to need to be looking for.
Okay.
And it's sometimes, again, looking at these slices across the grade level and saying across the years, and looking at item analysis and saying, are we seeing certain patterns of places where year upon year, our 4th graders are really struggling with this standard or
Yeah.
that standard. So those are the kinds of things we look for with any major curriculum change.
And do we have any overlay data that we can show, okay, in ELA for 6th grade, these are the cohort of students that are in the first 2 groups, and here's the cohort of students that are in the bottom 2 groups. And then here's other assessments that we have for those cohorts, and is there inconsistencies in the data, or is it consistent with what the MCAS results are?
Meaning, like, when we try to
Track.
relate the data to other.
Yeah.
So we can do that within our data dashboard. Is a
Mhm.
helpful place for us to see multiple data points together, but it's also something that tends to happen not in as big of an aggregate level, although
Okay.
we can
Yeah,
definitely do that.
okay.
But yes.
So just a couple of points. First, 3 years ago, we were not using an evidence-based curriculum.
Okay.
So what we were doing, we have fabulous teachers. They were doing a great job, but we're required to implement an evidence-based curriculum, the science of reading, and that has been the push and the shift. So that's
Okay.
a significant change.
Yeah.
And then secondly, part of the push around developing common assessments is so that we do have data at end of units that are measuring specific outcomes to see how students are performing.
Mhm.
Then we can go back and look at it, compare it to the outcomes of MCAS or other assessments that we have to see if kids are actually making the growth and achievement that we hope they will.
Okay.
And I would just add that, for like with Written Wisdom and Eureka, for our teachers, it has been a really significant learning
Yeah.
curve and a tremendous amount of work to learn these new curricula. And so that's why there often is a bit of a dip, because it also often takes longer the first time through, to just navigate through the curriculum and all of those things. So we do also expect to see with each year, and I would say the principals would probably attest to the fact that we see greater comfort, greater familiarity. People are able to sort of move through with more sort of faster pacing, quite
Mhm.
frankly.
Yeah.
So,
And we were able to cover more modules
Exactly.
last year.
yes.
So, you mentioned that teachers have the ability to look at like the questions, right? Are they looking at it for their current, for last year's, the students that they had last year only? And so that's specific to their own curriculum that they're covering? And do teachers for, like, let's say, you have kids who were in 5 different classrooms last year, do you have access to their last year data to understand that student? And it's not necessarily going to be related to the curriculum you're teaching, but at least understanding the results of how that cohort of students in your classroom did on MCAS the prior year. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
And so this is something I don't know that the teachers all even realize yet, but in the past it has relied on all of these folks to go into Edwin, which is the state data analytics platform, to print out various different graphics and things so that teachers could see current class, past class, and teachers have a real appetite for that information. This year with Analytic View, it's taken a lot of time and effort, and Kathy Carmignani and Julie Marshall have worked hard.
Okay.
There are now dashboards where the teachers can see their current class and their past class for all of the disciplines, and they can see item analysis for their current class and for their past class.
Okay.
So this is something that was not at people's fingertips in the past, and I'm being honest to say that I don't even know that all teachers realize yet
Yeah.
that
Okay.
it's at their fingertips, because we're still working it through. And that was one of the things with civics yesterday, was I was spending time, and Mr. Hershuk was there and a few of the curriculum leaders, and I was showing them those dashboards and where they can access that. And so we're kind of learning how to get the most out of those data platforms.
Okay.
And Chelsea, I would add, I think there's a tendency for teachers, they want to see how they did.
Yes.
So I think their first data analysis is looking at their past students. We as principals have really tried to change that mind shift. We want that validation, we want to know how we did, but our focus is, we're saying now you have 100 new students. Like, this is where we need to start spending our time and looking at that analysis. And I think, with Analytic View, that is giving us that opportunity. So,
That's right.
yeah.
The teacher's required to put together any sort of plan based off of that, right? I mean, as you said, it might be nice to look at from like an interest standpoint, like, oh, how'd I do? But you're not extracting the full value out of it if each teacher's not saying, all right, this is what I'm going to
What am I
do
doing as a
because of the results. Is that consistent, or is that sort of up to the teacher?
I'm going to turn to you all, because it might vary by school.
I think the item analysis is critical. I think if we're seeing patterns where we're seeing, we're not doing well in an area, and the teacher then has to reflect on his or her planning and saying, this, I did not do a sufficient enough job, or looking back at their own assessments and saying that, it's in line with what they saw. So that's probably the most important part, is doing that item analysis and where our gaps are.
And our grade level teams work together, PLCs or team time to analyze their data. I think one of the pieces that we really dig into, and Gary and we shared some data this week, was the writing responses. They were provided those examples of how students were scored, what that looks like, what their writing looked like, how did they score 1 or 4, and trying to understand how it's scored. And so we not only examine the data within our own schools, but we also have conversations across the schools.
Students get to see their essay from last year, one open response, and they get to see how it was graded by the state. And so in a year of maturation, it's pretty powerful. Our English teachers are able to take that open response, give them their open response and say, this is how you did. This is what, so to have that feedback is really impactful, and they can kind of think about some of their strengths and areas for growth. So
There is some analysis from the individual teacher, but I think a more appropriate approach is like looking at themes across the grade level. On the last graph you had there, Steph, it's 45%. It's an essay. That's what we did compared to potential points for that question. I think it's the one to the right. Left. The one in the middle with the big, yeah, that one. So we know the percentage of points that students have received on those, and then we look at trends where if 45% of our students, if only 45% of potential points are earned by students, what is the approach to writing there? Is there more? We'll look at the question, but then determine what the question's asking. Is it's pulling evidence from the text? What does it require students to do? And then how do we shift that practice in the classroom? I think that there is, but we also have to recognize, as Dr. Reinhardt mentioned, that thinking about the cohort of students that we have groupings based on academic needs, special education needs, ELD needs. So it wouldn't necessarily be fair to compare classrooms in that sense, because the profile of students is so different. So we look at grade level trends and stuff.
Yeah, I guess, so just looking at that, if you look at one question, right, obviously in that particular example, I would just, I would kind of say, well, do you necessarily want to over-index for that? It's just a tough question, because obviously everybody is crashing down on that by design, maybe. And so I guess what I'm kind of asking is, if you have that conversation, then is it consistent? Is it sort of agreed upon at the grade level? Okay, all right, let's look at question 12. Is that worth spending extra time on in the classroom, or no, because it's just a tough question and those are going to happen? And then is that consistently agreed on across the grade level, how you're going to address it, or is it sort of here's what we're going to do, and it's up to the teacher to actually?
No, there's consistency with the approach.
Okay.
Around it might be more practice writing passages. It might be providing multiple text where kids have to draw out pertinent information. It's the process in which we would use to practice those skills in the classroom.
Yeah.
Anybody want to ask anything? I know you could talk about this all night. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Principals, I think you can go enjoy your evening, or you're welcome to stay if you want.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks for
Thanks,
coming.
guys.
All right. AI study group.
Sure. So the joint policy subcommittee identified AI as a policy to develop for the 25-26 school year. after some discussion, the Joint Policy Subcommittee and I agreed. I think it's first important to form a school committee AI study group. I did bring this to the regional school committee meeting. It's meeting last week to Northborough and in the final school committee at Southborough to see if there is the will to create a study group around AI. It would include school committee members, district administrators, educators, students at high school and middle school levels. And then we have a lot of expertise in our community to invite expertise to serve on the study group as well, with a goal of really thinking about the impact on teaching and learning, assessment and academic integrity, thinking about equity, accessibility, and bias, and really charting a course and path for our district in terms of how AI can support the work we do, support operational efficiencies for our districts. It does say that at the end of this year we'll have our findings and be ready to move forward, so we'll have some findings. But I do see this as a standing committee. The committee will come up, or the study group will come up with recommendations, but it will continue its work into next year.
All right. Anybody have any comment or question?
I think this makes sense to me. I think two things is sort of like, what are we doing in the meantime? And then two, with how rapidly AI and its adoption is progressing, how do we make sure we don't kind of go through this process and then immediately it's
Absolutely
useless? Yeah.
Yeah. It is a changing landscape, and we'll have to keep it in mind. But in parallel, we're also, as educators and as school leaders, we're paying attention to the trends that are happening, more in particular at the middle and high school. But we are getting a better sense of how AI is embedded in a lot of the tools that kids are using now. But I agree, this is going to be dynamic and shifting because AI is changing constantly and quickly.
And I would just add that in the meantime, we are doing professional development for teachers on AI. Our induction session yesterday was about technology, and there was a lot of time spent focused on AI for teachers and for kids. So we're not sort of on hold and waiting, and people have guidelines. The schools have developed guidelines in their handbooks, and so there's a lot happening in the meantime.
Yeah. What is the policy right now for, like, you get assigned an essay? What's the policy with how you can utilize AI?
In terms of the middle school level?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, middle school.
Yeah, I mean, I think that currently, right now, I think it's academic integrity. We do teach kids about the AI tools and ChatGPT and some of the other resources that they have, and we talk about the importance of process, that it's not just the product, it's the process you go through to develop a piece, a writing piece, or a research paper. And through that process, there's a tremendous amount of learning. So teachers have conversations with their students. They set milestones, so it's not just a due date, but there are components that are due, which allows teachers to kind of gauge and measure the output of the work and how that works, basically.
I can speak to just a little bit of what I've seen in 5th and 3rd. So 5th grade, the 5th graders are learning about what's real information and what's not real information. And they don't come home and have an essay that they have to write. Now, I can't speak to the middle school, but like Greg said, there's like milestones that they have to meet. And specifically in 3rd grade, when they're given an assignment, like I think Steve had a picture on the right-hand side of the sea animals. So I was actually in one of the classrooms when they were doing this, and they were told which tools they could use. They had an option of 3 choices, and they had to start with like a table that they had to fill out that showed all their work and the information that they had gathered from their research. And then from that, I assume in the next class, they did their draft of their, I wasn't in that one, but, so my point is that I think probably through the professional development that's happening behind the scenes, the teachers are educating the students, and at least mine are coming home and explaining to me what ChatGPT is, and that, sometimes there's information that you can't believe. And so in a, 8 and 9-year-olds language, they're able to explain to me what this means. So that's just from like an upper elementary perspective. I don't know if
Well,
that's
I would just
interesting.
add too that, under the age of 13, there's data privacy agreements that we have with all of the software that we use. A lot of the AI tools do not have the data privacy agreements, so there's a shift. So that's something that we pay attention to. And then 13 and above, there's a little bit more flexibility.
So we actually block it for students on their Chromebooks in the middle school. Whereas at the high school, it's a different conversation where we're working with teachers on like, how might you actually engage students in using AI as a study tool? And then paired with all of what you were just talking about, Chelsea, of like really understanding, what's happening. And I think to the point that Megan made in her interview, some of what we're also trying to get kids to understand is the AI behind algorithms, and things like that. So it's a broad topic.
Yeah, right. That's very broad.
But Al, to your earlier point, like how to use the data to inform the work we do with students. From an educator perspective, I think there's going to be great power in helping us think about the data that we collect, analyzing that data, and actually helping us develop pathways that are evidence-based and research-based to help students get to that next level. The very individualized perspective.
And I will say that we have also done work with teachers on how do we use AI with integrity for efficiency and for, productivity, and what are the things that we don't do in AI? What are the sort of privacy aspects? And so that's something that we're working on also as adults. Like they're, as my son who's in college in an internship, his boss said to him, if you're not using AI, you're wasting your time. So we're going to use it well, and we're going to learn how to use it well. But this is not a world in which I want you to tell me you don't use AI. So this is the world we're in. Like they need to learn how to use it over time, as do our teachers, as do we.
Roger?
Can I presume that both Northborough and the region are supportive of those studies?
Yeah, so this is the last step
Okay, because
in the
that's what they're
process.
going to study.
The last thing I'll share is that students are learning how to learn, which is very different than a high school student. So I think really thinking about the brain and how students learn and develop mental appropriateness is a conversation we're having in terms of some of these tools and resources. That some of these tools and resources bypass that learning process for students. And we don't believe that's good for kids. So that's what we're really looking at.
So I think Southborough is supportive. Do you want us to take a motion? All right, great. All right, next, approval of grants and donations. So I'm going to let Laura take this one because I'm going to abstain.
So I move that the Southborough School Committee approve a donation of 4 new rim assemblies for the Neary School Gymnasium from Southborough Youth Basketball Association with an estimated value of $899.18.
Second.
All in favor?
Al?
Do I need to?
Or
do I need-
discussion?
Yeah, well, do I need to
No.
make acknowledge that I'm coaching?
No, no. It's just because
Okay.
I'm on board.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll mention it anyways, but that I'm coaching as part of the youth Basketball Association. So, but with that in mind, I would.
Do you want to share your record with us?
Kind of for the kindergartners. It's a record of figure out how many kids can dribble.
Yes.
They stay on the court the whole time. Actually, it's amazing.
That's a win.
It's check them out.
It's
Yeah.
exciting,
Yeah.
yes.
Sorry, that made me derail. I'm in favor.
You're in favor.
Yes.
Denise?
Yes.
Roger?
Okay.
And I'm in favor, and yes, thank you, of course, for this very generous donation. Great, thank you. Old business, Neary roof update.
So included in your packet is a memo that I shared with Greg, giving him an update on the Neary roof feasibility study. We did a procurement prior to break. We had a lot of firms that were interested, over 30 expressed interest, and 12 wound up submitting a proposal, which is a very strong number for this type of project. So we had our work cut out for us and reviewing those proposals, and we dug in and did that. At the end, we did a comprehensive reference check on 3 of the firms that were determined to be finalists. I want to thank Kathleen Valenti and Brian Fantoni for participating on the committee with me and getting to that point. I then conducted the references and then made the recommendation of contracting with Socatech. They are an architectural firm that has a great experience doing these exact types of projects, and that's what made them stand out for this job. Reached out to them, wanted to make sure that our aggressive timeline was one they could meet, and have a full understanding of the context of what this project not only meant for the schools, but the greater town context that we're working with. And they understood, they had done similar types of things, and I've been impressed so far. So we contracted with them just as we got back from break, and I can say yesterday they were conducting study already, getting onto the roof, doing some drone flyovers, capturing images, and really digging into what we have down at the Neary School. And they are very confident they're going to meet our timeline by submitting some preliminary cost estimates of the options by the end of the month, and then a more comprehensive report by the end of February. So as we had laid out in our procurement, they're going to be able to fulfill that, and I've been impressed with them so far.
And I can confirm they were drone flying at
They
6
were.
o'clock last night, because I was a little nervous
They
as to
were.
why we were having a drone over
Yep.
Neary.
And one of the reasons why they were doing it that time is we were able to get a nice stretch of dry weather, which then really helped them get the correct exposure versus the puddles that are on top of there, which really doesn't get what we needed. But they were successful, and they gave me the thumbs up today that that was a good time to do it.
Okay. So the warrant for special town meeting needs to be signed February 13th.
Mhm.
So we're hoping
Mhm.
for a menu
Mhm.
of options, right?
Yep.
That we'll have an idea of on January 29th.
Correct.
So our next regular meeting is going to be February 11th,
Correct.
which is probably too late for us to give a recommendation from the school committee as to which option we want as, I'm going to call it article number 4 for,
Okay.
because
Yeah, I
the
understand.
warrant's not done yet. So I think we probably need to have a meeting pretty close to after January 29th to talk specifically about this, because I think we're going to want a number and a path forward in the warrant article for the language. Reasonable?
I believe so.
So special,
Yes.
we can
And-
invite the
Correct.
firms.
They would be willing to participate
Okay.
to,
Fantastic.
share their expertise
Okay.
and what they learned,
Okay,
and why they would support numbers and a recommendation.
okay. So we're looking probably at the week of February 2nd.
And I'll communicate that with them to let them know
Okay.
that that will be something we'll be asking of them, and I have no doubt that this is plenty of time for them to comply with that.
Okay. Okay. And I mean, I think we're kind of going to number 3 now on the special town meeting school feasibility options. I mean, I think we as a committee need to decide what strategy we want to do with what type of roof, assuming that we have options. And I don't know if we want to talk about that now, or we want to wait to see if we do have options. Wait until we see if we do have options. Okay.
So that would be my
All
recommendation.
right. Okay. Thanks, Keith.
Well,
Anyone have any other questions about the Neary roof update? Okay. Thank you for working on that. I know that was a tight timeline for you.
no, happy to do it.
Trotter roof update.
Yes, so I'm going to be welcoming in our OPM and architect. I need a minute to
Okay.
fire up the owl here.
Fell asleep.
It did, and I was watching it fall asleep while I was sitting here.
Timing was off.
Correct.
Sorry.
No, I think, oh, what do you know? It behaved.
He woke up.
He did wake up.
Oh, it's awake.
Right. Okay. I don't see them yet. Let me see.
Keith, do you want to present kind of the basic information and then?
I
pick
can
up
definitely
on-
start. Yeah, I would hate for them to have to duplicate some of that, but yeah, let me do a quick overview so that we can at least get things started. So we're going to be joined by Doug Blyven, and he is come from T2. They are the architect that worked on the Trottier project. So just as a reminder, Trottier was accepted into the MSBA's Accelerated Repair Program. We were assigned T2 as our architect and our OPM, Owner Project Manager, Colliers, in June of 25, and we quickly started working on the Trottier project. This too is also included in a memo to you as part of the packet. What we did this fall and over the summer was really unpacking all the current conditions, a lot more elaborate because of the size of the Trottier roof and the age. They had a lot of different things that they had to explore, and I was impressed with their work of coming to us and kind of reviewing all the different things. And what MSBA requires is them getting to a recommendation. So unlike what we're going to get for Neary, there's less of a menu, and this is our recommendation. So this is why we hired them, or we engaged with them to do this type of work. So they did come forth and present us with some cost estimates right before the break, and that is also included in the memo. So on page 2 of that memo is the summary of kind of the breakdown of where they are from construction cost to design fees, to the total vote cost that will be asked for, boiled down to what will ultimately be the estimated amount to be bonded by the town if all goes well at town meeting. And this group is prepared to certainly make that presentation. So before they join us, is there anything about that or anything about the memo that the committee had questions on?
So they're actually going to present at town meeting.
They can be available at town meeting.
So who presents it at town meeting?
They
can.
do. Yeah, they
Okay.
can and do unless we decide that we
Okay.
want them to, but yes.
But that's normal.
It would be.
Okay.
Mhm. They're familiar with doing that.
Okay.
They are the experts.
Okay. And they know the date of town meeting.
They do.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions about that?
One of the pieces that came from the study that I can share about is not just the roof, but one thing to think about is drainage, the fascia boarding that's around the building, how it all interacts, and making sure that we're not just putting a new layer on top and then it's not going to be properly performing. So they do a lot of study in relation to how things are pitched, where the water and things are going, and also how they interact with then the envelope or the outside of the building to make sure that those don't become infiltration points. They had a variety of, good things to share. There are different types of systems throughout the building because we have old and new. Remember, the Trottier was originally an 80,000 square foot building, and then the addition was put on in the early 2000s. It did have a different roofing system. So those were things that they dove into and investigated. And we do have a combination of pitch portions and flat portions.
And they'll look at the insulation
Yes.
underneath.
That's absolutely a part. It does not need a full and complete replacement. This is really like a roof recovery project where they're doing the things they need to do and address, but it is not a, full and complete replacement.
Okay.
And that really helped keep us in a good price point of where we wanted to be.
So these costs cover all of that, the envelope and whatever possibly could happen of that kind?
Yes. And there's two notable pieces about the roofing system itself. The pitch portions will be shingled, and the flat portions will be a PVC roof system.
And we're still operating with the possibility of putting solar on top of this
Correct.
roof?
That's one of the requirements of the MSBA Accelerated Repair is their evaluation of the solar capabilities, and they have that mapped out as part of their analysis. Ultimately, because of the MSBA timeline, a lot of this had to be submitted to MSBA on January 8th prior to this meeting, and then ultimately it will be reviewed for their MSBA's February meeting, and the project will be hopefully approved then.
Got it.
I do not know where they are. Yeah.
Keith, let us know if you want to go back. Anybody have any?
Yeah, why don't we do that? I mean, are there any, because would there be any questions the committee would want to understand about the work that they did? And then I might be able to get that even in short order here.
Does anybody have any specific questions?
Yeah.
I think you're good.
So I think the overall thing, and they were going to share this, is that this roof system is certainly not the best and absolute most fantastic thing you can get. It's right at that kind of mid-tier and getting us a quality warranty, a quality
Is it
roof
30 year?
system. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So we're going to be doing and then obviously looking at the age of Trottier, all that's worked into it. And
Sure.
Greg and I met with them on a couple of occasions and feel like this was a quality recommendation.
Okay.
So just so the committee knows, that big number, the 8 can't remember off the top of my head,
Yeah.
that is the number that will need to go before town meeting
Yes.
to be approved, because then the amount of reimbursement is based on the actual project. And those are the estimates that are included on that spreadsheet. So to the best of their ability now, that's how it's forecasted with our reimbursement rate included, all the things that are and are not reimbursable are included, and we're hoping that that is a nice conservative number to move forward with.
And what's the timing?
Summer of '27.
Summer of 27.
If it can be done earlier, it's possible, but that won't change the budget.
And we'll have kids, can we do it in the summer break timeframe, or will it?
It will, there'll be some shoulder time to it, but the hope is that the bulk and anything that's loud or disruptive
Yeah.
can be taken care of. But yes, we will have people on the roof while students are in, especially towards the end, 80+% completion will probably be during school time. And I've had that preliminary conversation with Gary, and we'll figure it out.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. So number 3, special town meeting school feasibility options. We briefly talked about the roof, but select board is meeting, I believe, next week to talk about the warrant articles. So, and more info on that. Update on principal search processes for Finn and Erie.
I'm happy to give an update. So we are running 2 parallel searches. So we have a committee that is focused on Finn and one focused on Neary. Heather is leading the Neary committee and I'm leading the Finn committee, and we're actually literally meeting at the same times in different buildings each time. We had our first meeting of each group, developed interview questions, sort of set, our goals, talked about attributes and traits that we're looking for, using the data from our survey, from caregivers, from staff, and also just having discussion. We have representatives on both committees from faculties, from the parent community, from school committee, from central office. And our next step is tomorrow. Each committee will meet to finalize interview questions and determine which candidates we're going to bring in for a first round of interviews. Interviews will happen on January 27th, and then from there we will identify candidates to move to a second round of interviews and site visits, and then we adapt the process as we need to based on what we learn. So we have great committees, and we're excited to continue the process.
Great, thank you. Anybody have any questions? Great. Transportation technology update.
So I would like to share an update on where we are with transportation. As you are aware, we entered into a new contract with NRT at the start of this year. It did incorporate a lot of different changes from operationally to technology. So specifically about technology, the process of integrating that technology did begin over the summer, but it is still underway. So I'm going to go just topic by topic and share where we are. Turn-by-turn navigation was one of the first things that was installed. It was ready to go for the start of school. And what we've seen so far is it has been used, but not with the consistency that I'd like to see. So we still have drivers that have printed out sheets, and that's something that we're trying to get away from. It's a combination of comfort versus the accuracy of the routes, which is NRT's responsibility, and that's something we're continuing to work on. So I'm owed an update on where we are with the training related to the turn-by-turn, and I'm hoping to get that, in short order. The second item is the RFID program. This was the cards that our students were going to have that indicated when they got on and then off the bus. It would be time-stamped. We did start the pilot at the Finn School with one of the buses. We were having some technical difficulty with the functionality of it. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. Sometimes it recorded accurately, sometimes it didn't. Really tried to unpack that. I think that was a smart move to do a pilot on a smaller scale. We finally got that working, but then I heard from Principal Ryan today that it shut down for some reason. So we got to figure that out. We are prepared, though, to push it out to the remainder of the Finn students. We have the cards ready, they've been programmed. Now it's a matter of just making sure that the interface is working properly. So nothing worse than trying to push something forward and not having it working as expected. So
is the card in the kids' backpacks, or?
It's attached to their backpacks. Yes.
Okay, so they're not actually having to.
They do. They have to
they
physically
do.
use the card
Oh.
and place it on the scanner to have it work. The kids love it.
I'm sure they love it.
Clayton has made quite an interesting, yes, Clayton has reported some interesting interactions with the littles when it comes to this.
Okay.
And they are very excited that they were the ones
Right, of
chosen
course they are.
as the pilot of this program.
That's awesome.
But unfortunately, it's not working. So
But they don't know that.
They have no clue. And so the practice and the fidelity of it is there. I think it's, now the technology has to be there.
Okay.
So we're in good shape. The bus tracking application for families, we are one of a few districts that are using the Beacon Connect app, and what I can say is similar to what I've kind of commented before and individually to some of you, is that once a parent has engaged with the app and they have needed some assistance and asked and emailed the company directly, the response has been very good. What I don't, though, and I can't answer basic questions like how many people are using it and is it working effectively. So the analytics related to it is not available. And if it's available, hasn't been made available to me yet. So that's something that I'm pushing on, because I can't support something I don't know whether or not it's working. So that's been a frustration. Some people have had things default on them in weird situations, but then I also have parents telling me that it's working great every day, morning and afternoon. So it's a mixed bag, but that's purely anecdotal. I don't have any hard numbers to support its accuracy. And lastly, the live feed cameras. Just recently installed. There are new cameras on all 32 of the buses across the district. This was done in the middle of November. Our administrators were, I was trained last week, and our administrators were trained last week. We are now connecting with the company about giving us that access. The initial response from those that participated were very impressed by the interface. It worked very well. We were actually seeing how it worked during the demonstration. So overall, feeling really confident that this is going to be a game changer. And so not only, the biggest thing is a safety piece, right? We're going to have more eyes be able to see what's happening on the buses, which is going to translate into a safer experience. And then as far as working with students that might be having some unexpected or some behavior, the goal is that will be communicated and identified, and it's possible that a principal could be on the phone with a parent before the kid gets to their bus stop. Whereas now, we're waiting for a download, could take days, the story can change, and isn't really an effective way of using the technology. So this is really, really improving our ability to use it in its intended use and effectiveness. So we're close. So I would say it's been installed but not implemented. That's the status of that.
I was very happy to hear the messaging that was given at NERI to the kids about the cameras.
Right.
I thought it was very positive.
Yep.
It was my kid couldn't believe the number of angles that the camera had. Like, he was like blown away that you're not going to be able to get away with anything.
Correct.
But also the message was that this is for safety.
Yes.
And I thought that however it was presented, I was very happy with how it was presented. So thank you.
I would agree. Yeah, that was part of a collaboration, just really thinking through the principles of, what are we really trying to achieve here? It's not an I gotcha.
No.
And what it is ensuring that they're feeling more comfortable. So, because not every student feels comfortable in the bus.
Right.
This, through messaging, is going to help hopefully gain that comfort.
Yeah.
And for the drivers as well.
Yes. So thank you for that.
The only other update is the stop arm camera.
Stop arm. So connected to the live feed is the stop arm cameras. That's part of the same system. So they are installed and ready to be implemented, and it will allow us to report any infractions that are seen, also as another layer of security. And certainly we have the cooperation of Southborough PD to act on anything that's shared with them. They've been very good. When we get any types of reports and are able to share the footage that we even currently have, they've been very helpful, and this is only going to enhance that.
Great.
Thankfully, we don't have that too often.
All right. Thanks, Keith.
You're welcome.
All right. Enrollments.
Sure. So in your packet is the enrollment report as of December 15th. The one note I will highlight is that for 25, 26, actually 26, 25, 26, and projections for 26, 27. We're looking at third grade, and we're still having internal conversations around, is that the right number of educators to have in third grade? So that number may change at the next report. So it will also be part of our budget conversation.
Thank you.
And I'll turn it over to Becky for the financial reports.
Okay, so first I will start with the items that are overexpended on the FY26 budget. So we do have 5 function codes that are overexpended. They are teacher specialists, and that is for our translations, substitutes, long-term and short-term, employee separation costs, and then also our tuition out line item. I will note that the teacher specialist line item and the substitute short-term line item are really timing issues, encumbrances we're not taking down to adjust for these expenses. They have been corrected. I don't anticipate that the translations will be over budget. Substitutes is another situation that may still be over budget, but those two, I just wanted to point that out. And in terms of the tuition out, if you recall, with the FY26 budget, we had planned to utilize some of our FY26 circuit breaker money. We had encumbered some of those funds onto that circuit breaker. However, as we've been developing the FY26 budget, it's very apparent that we do need to make sure that we are utilizing all of our FY27 funds in FY27 funds in FY27. And so we did move those funds off of circuit breaker and onto the operational budget, and that is why that line item is showing as overexpended. However, we have identified accounts where we can take those funds from. In terms of the monthly general fund report that is in your packet, that's as of December 31st, and unbelievably, it is for the first 6 months of fiscal year, so we're more than halfway done with FY26. We do have a budget balance of $185,248, which is 0.74% of the operational budget, and it's pretty consistent with where we were actually in last month's report. It's a difference of $9,700. So we are very closely watching this budget. We are looking at all line items, but I think it is still remains in a good place at this point in the year.
And the employee separation costs, is that somebody's retiring before the school year
Someone
ends?
is retiring during the school year, and they do have a retirement incentive. That
Okay.
is due, and it was one that we're not aware of.
Okay, got it. All right, anybody have any questions on either one of those? All right, so I'll move that the Southborough School Committee vote to accept the FY26 monthly general fund report as of December 31st, 2025 until audited, and vote to approve the function codes listed above that have been overexpended in FY26.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you.
So, and next are the approval of the warrants and payrolls. So I have included in your packet a listing of the 2 payrolls and the multiple warrants, account payable warrants that were processed during the month of December.
So also in your packet is the approved FY27 capital plan. And I know that the capital planning committee did meet to talk about accelerating some of the capital items. So working with Keith and some of the central office team, and from the guidance of the capital planning committee and school committee, we are accelerating security as well as technology plans that are on the capital.
Do you want us to vote with the actual numbers that we submitted for the bonded pieces?
Do you have those numbers?
For which projects?
The numbers we submitted
For,
to.
I have it.
The MSBA or these ones for the technology?
For technology and,
Yeah, so you want the totals, Chelsea?
yeah, so it's 1.4 for
Yes.
security.
Yeah.
And,
360 for technology.
okay.
Yep.
All right, so I'll move that we update the security system upgrades for FY27 to be a total of $1.4 million, and the technology, infrastructure, and equipment for $365,000. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay, so that's just solidifying what we did on Friday.
And it will include all 4 schools?
Yes.
That supports all 4
Yes.
schools for both?
For both.
For both projects, yeah.
Yeah. Do you need us to vote the warrants and payrolls, Becky?
I think you usually.
Yeah, all right, so I'll move that we approve the warrants and payrolls as presented in the packet. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Revolving funds.
Okay, so the revolving of funds accounts, so there are three Southborough accounts that we do monitor on a monthly basis. The first is the food services, and you can see that we have really started to receive revenues for this school year. I will note that Keith and I, as well as a few members of my team, are going to be meeting with Whitson's at the end of the month just to review where we stand at this point in the contract and to go over some financials. The facility rental, we have encumbered the funds for this study, the Trotter roof study, and so we are still anticipating about, sorry, Neary roof, too many roof projects. So we do have an anticipated fund balance still remaining of 130 at the end of this year. And then lastly, extended day, again, continues to receive the revenues that we are anticipating. The encumbrances, and I mention this every month for both the food services and the extended day, really are just for those that are known salaries and are not for all expenses. And one other piece that I just want to point out is that this number also does not account for health insurance for both food services and also for extended day, and that is something that we reconcile with the town with on a quarterly basis, and so that is going to be happening relatively soon. So you will see those numbers go down in future months. And then lastly, the preschool revolving.
Sorry, can I just stop you on this one? So for FY27 though, where are those benefits? Because we moved them to be paid out of the revolving accounts for food services.
So for,
and extended day
for
for 26.
Extended day always had the health insurance
Okay.
coming out. It was the food services that we moved.
Okay.
It's our anticipation that it will not be coming out of the revolving account, that we had agreed to do that for this year.
So have we confirmed that on the town side?
That was a conversation that was had initially, but I will talk to Brian Valentine and just make sure that he is including that.
Okay, thank you, I'm sorry.
Yep. And then lastly, the preschool early childhood account, really not much of a change from the prior month. That account really is pretty steady and even going.
All right, and in your packet is the budget priorities, which hasn't changed, and the budget calendar. Related to the calendar, I think this is probably on here, I didn't check, but the 24th is the budget meeting with select board and advisory. I think tentatively their draft, at least in the last select board meeting, was 9 and 9:45 for schools. I cannot do 9 o'clock, but I could be there for 9:45, so if the region can go first. But we will post for a school committee meeting for that morning as well. They usually do it at public safety on a Saturday. And then also in your packet is the recommended budget presentation, and these numbers obviously have not been updated because the packet was done prior to our meeting on Friday. So I don't know if you want to, I know Becky, you weren't at our meeting, but I assume that you know what we decided. I don't know if you want to run through any of this evening.
Yeah, so we can give a high-level overview.
Sure.
From more of the community's perspective, and then talk about our next steps. So we're going to skip all of the...
Yes, yep. I've already...
Thank you.
Oh, you went too far.
Oh, you already
yes,
did this.
Yes, I've already...
I was ready to start clicking.
Oh, no. Okay.
So start here?
Yes,
okay.
Perfect. So, you know, I know that you did speak about this on Friday, but the FY27 budget really is a level services budget. Right now, we are at a 3.67% increase, which is $922,128 increase over FY26. Go to the next slide. And this slide really just shows how we started off with our initial budget request at an 11.93% increase, and the leadership team has really worked closely with the principals to bring those numbers down to the recommended budget that we have tonight. Overall, that has resulted in just over $2 million in total offsets. The largest portion of that offset is our FY26 circuit breaker, which represents about 1.3 million of the $2 million in reductions. A few things to point out is that there are some positions that are not included in the FY27 budget. One is one of the elementary classroom teachers that we had spoken about at last month's meeting. So right now we do have one new classroom teacher, but the second one has been removed for this budget. And then it also does not include the instructional technology specialist, a third librarian at the elementary level, a multilingual teacher, which is something that we had talked about, and then also the world language teacher, which would expand the world language program to 5th grade as we had planned to do. Actually, if you want to go ahead and skip, we've seen that number a few times. So if we were to bring this budget down to a 3% increase, we would need to find about $168,000 in reductions, which would be approximately 2 FTEs, because we really have looked at all of our lines at this point in time. The next slide. In terms of circuit breaker, I wanted to give the committee just an overview of what our circuit breaker has looked like over the previous 6 fiscal years. And you can see on average we do receive about $1,178,000 per year. Our low has been just over $1 million, and then our high is 1.3. But we really have been pretty consistent with a few up and downs over the years. And as a reminder, circuit breaker is a reimbursement that we do receive from the state, and that is based on the prior fiscal year's special education costs for students. And in order to have an eligible claim, it's one student based on their IEP does have to meet a threshold of $53,431. And then anything above that is reimbursable to the district at 75%. And then lastly, this is a 9-year average of where the K-8 school budget has come in. As you can see, we are at an average of 2.91%, so we really have been, I think, fiscally responsible in terms of looking at our budgets from FY18 through this last year, or the year that we're currently in, I should say. So that is a quick overview of the budget.
So I think in our meeting on Friday, there were two main drivers that will increase the 3.67%. And one is using the FY28 circuit breaker of $500,000, which as a committee, we agreed that was probably too aggressive. And I think that is supported by kind of the trend. If you look at the slide you just gave with the last 6 years. So reducing that to be $350,000, and then the conversation around the facility operating line item of $45,000. So we're effectively adding $200,000 back into the budget, which is really, we're just reducing the amount of offset that we're giving. But I think in preparation for the meeting on the 24th, in addition to the positions not included in the FY27 budget, we need to make sure we're clear that we are still using $350,000 of a future year circuit breaker amount, and then any of the other offsets that we took into account. And I'm forgetting what the list of that was, but there was one related to special ed and a few other things. But I think we need to highlight that we are really borrowing from a future year, and people need to understand the risk affiliated with that. I also think that if we could put some values related to the positions not included in the FY27 budget and what that would look like from a percentage increase I mean, obviously 250,000 is 1% of the budget, but it's an easy comparison. I think that's important. And I also think that we should show full-time FTEs over the last 10 years and have a row for teachers and a row for ESPs. So that way there's a differentiation. They're understanding that obviously the needs of our students are reflective of ESP needs. I think that would be helpful to show that there has been very little change in our FTE requirement,
So in preparation for the 24th, we will have our budget booklets prepared.
Okay,
So we'll have all the detailed line item budgets. We'll have FTE, historical data,
Okay.
and current data. We'll have enrollment, so we'll have a lot more data, and we'll share that obviously with the committee next week. Looking through what's on it today, we have a few updates to make based on
Okay.
the conversations. And our goal is to get that to the select board and the boards and committees by next Thursday,
okay,
so they can review it in preparation for the
okay. So I think we probably need to have another operational subcommittee meeting. Does the whole committee want to be included on that? Okay,
And I'll have Cheryl find the time
Perfect.
that works for
Yep,
the committee.
that's great. Anybody else have any, I know we spent a lot of time on this on Friday, but does anybody else have any other comments or questions on the budget? Okay. Thank you, Becky.
Thank you.
Okay, personnel, so, Greg's gonna excuse himself for the minutes at 8:32.
And I'm going to bring in Heather.
Perfect, thank you. And first, the personnel report is in our packet for distribution. So that's that. And then ethics disclosure, discussion, and vote. Hi, Heather, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. All right. So you'll see in this packet there are two letters that are disclosure letters, and they are being provided to you in the spirit of being very transparent. So there is an education support professional that a principal has recommended to be hired, and this person, there is a possible appearance of a conflict. And so we wanted to be clear that there is a potential relationship or familial relationship with the superintendent. And so we just wanted to be transparent and say that if this person is hired, that they will report directly to the building principal, and then I will be the hiring and appointing authority for this individual. Are there any questions?
Any questions?
Both of the documents are referring to the same thing?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. And this gets filed with the state, Heather?
Yes, it would.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Any comments or questions on that? Okay. So I'll move that the school committee approve the signing of the ethics disclosure discussion, or the ethics disclosure as presented in the letters in our packet this evening. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Thank you, Heather.
See ya.
Thank you.
Bye.
Keith, you want to just go grab?
What's that?
Want to go grab? I can get, or someone. Thanks. All right, next, we have a few sets of minutes. We have a joint meeting from December 8th, our regular meeting on December 10th, and then the operational budget meeting on December 15th. Anybody have any changes or comments on those? All right, so I'll move that we approve the December 8th, 2025 minutes, the December 10th, 2025 minutes, and the December 15th, 2025 minutes as presented. Any discussion? All in favor? 5-0, thank you. All right, agenda items for next month. We have the multilingual learner presentation. I think we're also looking to have Kathy Carmignani and John Parent come in to talk about the smart boards, which are included on our capital plan. And I'd like to invite MTC to come in to see that demo. And if you have anything else. Also, Greg shared the letter to Senator Eldridge, Senator Kennedy, Representative Donahue, and Representative Kilcoyne this evening that I did sign along with the other two school committee chairs for the district. And next week there is a meeting at the region that we think there'll be some representatives there.
Senator Eldridge has confirmed.
Okay, perfect. Is anybody available to go to that meeting?
When is that?
6:30 on next Wednesday, the 21st.
I can go.
Okay. If anybody else wants to go too, we can post.
Where will this be?
It's on Algonquin. It's the region school committee
Right.
meeting. I can't. But if anybody else wants to go, we can post for it. We just need to post by, well, Monday's a holiday, so we'd have to post by
Well,
Friday.
didn't he say she was?
Yeah.
I might be able to go, but you don't need to post for
No,
that.
not for two.
No more than
Right, okay.
Okay. So if you don't mind, that would be great. And then any other items for February, just let me know unless you have something now. All right. Okay. Public comment. Mr. Lick.
Just a couple of comments. The first is with respect to your AI study committee. I've lived through 3, or depending on how you count, 4 generations of AI is coming, AI is great. And I will say that, in this current iteration, there's more irrational exuberance, quote a previous Fed chair, than I've seen before. I think it's important not only to look at the opportunities, but to look at what it can't do. It's easy to get caught up in the exuberance and all the stress that's going on. But just keep an eye on what it can't do, and therefore what you don't want it to do. The second unrelated comment is I think it's very important for the upcoming special town meeting that you have a communications and community education plan and program out early. I think if there's one thing to learn from the previous NERI experience, it's that you have to prepare and people have to be prepared. And if you wait till the last minute, it won't work.
Thank you. All right. Oh, yeah. Kelly.
I know we mentioned that the
Kelly,
Schroeder firm.
sorry, Kelly. Can you just say your name and address, please?
Kelly Collins, 17 saying that. I know we mentioned that the firm doing the Schroeder roof is going to be available at that town meeting. Is the firm doing the metery roof also going to be available and allowed to speak at the special town meeting?
We'll follow up with you. Thank you. All right, so with that, I move that the school committee enter executive session per exemption 4 to the open meeting law, chapter 30A, section 21A4, to discuss the deployment of security personnel or devices or strategies with respect thereto, and not to reconvene in open session. This needs a roll call vote. Is there a second?
Second.
Roger?
Aye.
Chelsea's aye. Laura? Aye. Denise?
Aye.
Alan?
Aye.
All right, and it's 8:40.